go live. Setting up meeting for Facebook
Oh, hey,
Live.
live on Facebook.
Hey, yeah,
Whoa.
it says that. Nice.
Does it say that we're live?
Yeah, like a little pop-up on the thingy. On the Zoom.
Excellent. Cool. Whoever's watching, welcome to Makerspace Night Online. That's the only introduction you're getting. So if you miss it, rewind. All right. So
Hey, and I can see the event on. I can see who's talking on the event that's currently live.
oh, that's cool. So even though like we're not sharing our faces, it'll show the names.
Where is this at?
I'll just share it in the Discord.
Okay. Oh, the discussion tab. Nice.
New
Hey.
project. What did I call this? NIM type
That
0?
is very cool.
Yeah, that's pretty slick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even more seamless than the solution I was going to do with OBS. So not going to lie, worth paying monthly for.
So yeah, it looks like it does start recording at the time you started the live stream.
Oh, well, that's troublesome.
Neato. Is it?
Our conversation about the dark web.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's fine. I mean, that's just basic stuff, you know. I mean, Wes is presenting on that right now, actually. That's one of his things he's presenting on, is how to buy and sell credit cards on the dark web.
Well, actually, let me
Don't
while I'm
spoil
waiting
it.
for this project to build, let me pull up the message that I was actually given, because I ended up reporting at the Discord. I was like, yo, this is sketch. Look at this. First of all, not even a real name. It's Zythas, Zinthas.
That sounds pretty real.
Yeah, that's a real person. My name is Zinthas. I'm a carder, a digital privacy enthusiast, and a reputable darknet vendor. Okay, that's all I need to know. Blocked, reported.
I feel like reputable darknet vendor is
reputable.
I like that term.
Yeah.
That's how you make like a somewhat morally gray business sound legitimate.
I'd say it's a little more than morally gray.
And his Discord's probably linked to his personal Gmail or something.
You know what? At least he's reliable. That's all that matters.
And it's just
in this economy, that's what matters.
He goes on to explain what online carding is, as if he hasn't dug the hole deep enough. This is your only invitation. Read thoroughly. I teach online carding. Online carding is when you purchase credit card details online and use these details to place orders on web stores. There may be known websites that sell these details, and you can buy credit card info for about $10 to $20 each. You've been invited to become a student to learn how to do this. And it just sounds like a school for cyber criminals.
Always be selling.
I can't tell if it's like a school for cyber criminals or like a pyramid scheme. Probably both.
It's definitely a pyramid scheme at some level.
Yeah.
All right, so I got to rebuild NIM type 0 because all I have is code that I pulled from GitHub.
Yeah. Do we want? Okay, I am unmuted. Do we want to talk about the projects we've been doing?
I think we might want to talk about ourselves first, just like introductions, maybe.
Definitely introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name's Anthony. I'm an addict.
Hi.
To code, clearly. I'm working on remembering my GitHub password. No, I'm kidding. I'm working on a card game that I pulled from a show about gambling. It's kind of like poker and blackjack mixed in one. It's called NIM Type 0. And today I'm going to try and figure out the betting function, the piece of code that lets players place bets on the hand they have.
I am Wes Stanton. I am in the security field, but do coding as part of my job, I guess. A little bit of coding here and there. And I have been working on scripts for checking for a new vulnerability that came out, and the script has some very unique requirements, but yeah.
Hi, I'm Chris Palmer. I'm a YSU graduate and software developer.
Question mark?
Yeah, question mark.
Don't sound too sure about yourself there.
Yeah. Well, so I have 3 projects that I'm kind of working on. The first one was a chess memory game. So something that would basically show a chess position or board configuration for some period of time. Then you memorize it and then reproduce the configuration. And I don't know. There's a bunch of features I'd like to add to that at some point, but I'm not going to be working on that now. The other one is a Quarto engine. So Quarto is a board game that is a played on a 4x4 grid. There's a set of 16 pieces that have 4 different attributes: height, shape, color, and whether they're hollow or flat. And basically you're trying to connect 4 in a row. Well, so you choose a piece, give it to your opponent, they place the piece, and the goal is to try and connect 4 in a row of any one attribute. So I'm working on an engine to basically take a board position and give the best possible next move. And then the other thing is a pre-visualization tool for like shooting video or whatever. So basically you can set up characters in a space, move cameras around, change lighting, stuff like that. And I'm building that in Unity.
Very cool.
I can step in here. I'm Andrew Jarvis. I graduated from UC from Canfield. I work at Cover My Meds right now remotely, and I've been working on right now a chess AI, and AI is in air quotes here. It's more of a chess bot. So essentially, I'm using a lot of common concepts like mini-max algorithms and decision trees, things like that, to try to get the bot to make decisions on its own, given that its opponent is working or making decisions optimally. So I will explain a little bit of that later, but I'll also go into like kind of how I hosted it and everything, because I feel like that's often overlooked. So, a little bit of GitHub pages and introduction, like GitHub Actions and things like that. So some cool new stuff.
All right, cool. Is Joe still in here?
Yeah, I'm around.
Oh,
Hi,
cool.
I'm Joe Dunko. I'm a software engineer at Bridge AI out of Pittsburgh. I mostly work on like MVPs and kind of the first versions of apps and websites and web apps and stuff for different people. I'm working on a small app for showing you the current event and the time remaining and the time until the next event for Star Wars Battlefront 2, which was recently free on the Epic Games Store. I noticed that there was no resource that really had like all the events in one place. And so I thought I'd make something small and try out some tech that I normally don't play with. Yeah.
All right, I think that's everyone.
Yes.
Yep.
Very
where you wanna go?
cool. Home. No, I'm actually feeling a bit peckish. So I'm thinking about getting Grubhub ordered. I just don't know what.
So what do we do here?
I think it's like just meandering about, talking about projects as we work on projects, and if kind of like how we do in Hack Night, where if you have problems, you be like, so I need help with this, and you share screen, and then other people can see you sharing that screen and troubleshooting the problem. Just kind of like putting the development process out there in the open, so people can kind of like look in from the outside point of view and see what working on something's like, I guess. I don't know. That's what I had envisioned. You
Yeah.
guys can make whatever you want out of it.
Assuming,
I can kind of go through that a little bit on my end if you want.
Yeah. Do it.
All right.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to kind of go through what they've been doing, I guess.
Yeah. Cool. So
I want to see that nim type 0 at some point.
Okay. Like,
yes.
I have zero interaction, but I'd love to show it.
Well, after,
How do I share my screen?
Let me see if you need to like request permission.
I think I might, yeah.
All right, do it. Request permission.
From where?
The share screen button, right?
Well, I don't think that exists.
It's
Multiple
at the
purchase.
bottom middle if you're looking there, but it
Oh,
says
wow.
Host disabled participant screen
Yeah,
sharing.
that's what
Why'd you
mine
do
says, too.
that?
Yeah.
I didn't do that. Hold on a minute.
I think you did. Are you the host?
Where's the FBI agent at that's hosting this?
Yeah. All right.
FBI
Advanced
agent.
sharing options. Who can share? All participants. Who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? All participants. How many
Nice.
participants can share at the same time? All of them.
Oh yeah.
Go nuts, guys.
All right. I am going to disable Flux here for the benefit of everybody involved.
Yeah, please do.
So, yeah, so I just like going through, I guess I use Windows Subsystem for Linux. I could do this on my work computer, but I want to give WSL a try. So I'm just, hosting it there. So, yeah, I also have like the integration with VS Code here, which is very nice, by the way, if anybody hasn't used it yet. And let's see here.
Not to interrupt, but this stream is really nice. Like, I don't know if anyone else is.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
it's
getting
real
some-
crispy.
I just
Really?
wanted to comment that
Crisp
'cause we were
1080.
struggling with Discord and a little bit with Hangouts with this, and like it's really crispy.
And on Max, you get the full resolution too. Max, you get like the higher than 1080, like crazy resolution as well.
Oh, that is real nice.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I mean, I don't really.
Really quick.
So I like just like going through. I set this up. I took this as like an opportunity to learn Webpack and GitHub Actions. So I wanted to see if I could just do like a Webpack thing from scratch, and I did. Referencing documentation and whatnot. And all I did was just basic stuff. It takes this file here and makes it into that file there. And this file is prettier than that file. So, and it gives me the opportunity to use some more modern JavaScript that isn't really supported by all browsers other than Chrome. So I just wanted that sort of flexibility and also an opportunity to learn Webpack. So, yeah, gonna go ahead and get right into it. I guess like the thing here is that while I'm developing, I just run a Webpack or watch thing, make changes and automatically updates. And on top of that, I'll get into the actual like design of this later. I want to like get into the structure, but once I'm done sort of making changes, like let's say I want to push all these changes, which I am in no place to push right now, as you can see all the comments and to-dos. But if I wanted to make like a change here and have that like kind of reflected up on Git, obviously like do a little commit little thing here. This is all, if you've used Git before, kind of basic, but the trick here is I wanted to see like every time I push up changes to my app, where it's deployed here, can it redeploy the changes automatically? And it sounds like very simple because this is a static HTML JavaScript site, but the trick is this JavaScript needs to be compiled down to this, which isn't very trivial, especially if you don't want to commit this to your GitHub repo, which is a huge no-no really, because it's a compiled file. So I decided to give GitHub Actions a try. And what that basically entails is I set up a trigger for a workflow. So if you look at it here, I basically say like every time the main branch is pushed to, just build and deploy the script. And I take advantage of a few built-in stuff. First out, checking out the repo using Node.js. And then I run like npm install and build, and I take advantage of this GitHub Pages thing. So I'll show you that in action here. It's very cool. It automates a lot of stuff for me. So you'll see that this has happened before 28 days ago. So I'll do a git push here. And assuming, let's say I made changes to the index, it would be reflected here, but either way it should build. Hold on. This thing is getting in the way. So now it just automatically builds it right here, which is super cool. So it acts as almost like a build system, like you would use Jenkins or something like that. But yeah, it's all built in the GitHub. Pretty cool. Builds it, completes job, boom, new version's out there. Probably should have made a change to the HTML file to show you that, but it's fine. So yeah, right now, just to get into the actual thing, like I said, this is, the Zoom thing keeps, how do I get this out of the way?
I can't see what you're seeing, so I have no idea what you're
Okay.
talking about.
Well, there's
Oh,
like a
the-
bar at the top.
Yeah, you can actually click and drag it and move it to the left or right.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I don't use Zoom if you couldn't tell. So basically what I did here is there's a few ways I wanted to approach this. First off, I wanted this opportunity to kind of figure out how to write a Minimax algorithm, see how decision trees work, and apply that to chess, which is an age-old computer science problem for applying decision algorithms and artificial intelligence to. So I decided to kind of build off of, you know, the classics a little bit. So the idea here is that I'm white, black moves automatically, and I want this to kind of get to a point where it doesn't make moves like that. See that? Where I could just take its queen. But right now, it does use a very primitive sort of decision tree where it looks one move ahead. It'll still put its pieces in not great positions. If I put my piece there, it should take that, but it doesn't. So as you can see, this isn't exactly working right now, but it does move and make mildly sensible options and choices. So, you know, if you were probably like, what, rank 400, you could probably beat it. But I'm trying to get it up to a point where, like, if you're 600 rating, like, or 800 rating rather, like you could, you know, have a bit of a challenge. Part of that is this sort of decision tree thing that is not finished at all, but I can run through it either way. Ignoring everything else around it, I get every possible move inside of the game that black could make, and then I simulate that move in a temporary game instance, and then I kind of set up the decision tree a little bit here, and for each of those moves I get the next possible moves based on that move. So that would be this thing being here, any of black's moves, and then based on that move, any of white's move, and then on top of that, right after that, I get the board value for whether it's leaning towards white or black. So given any amount of moves that black can make and any amount of moves that white can make, what is the value, the net value of all pieces on that board? And when I mean board value, I mean like each piece has different value on it. So if the next move, let's say I take this, the board value goes up because I took a piece of black's. Black takes a piece of mine, the board value goes down. So I'm kind of doing it based on that and based on what is the best move I can make to get the most board value in the end. After talking with Chris last night, that seems like more of a primitive approach to this, where there's a few ways I can go, is what I'm evaluating now. So a few ways I can do it is instead of board value, I can kind of determine what's the quickest way I can win, or what are all the possible ways I can win, plus the amount of material that I can win, material being pieces, or what's the positional advantage of black? So putting black in a better position. So for example, developing this knight on g8, say up to f6, attacking the center here. So stuff like that to give black a positional advantage. So that's all stuff I'm working on, stuff that's not implemented. Just to wrap that up real quick, I'm using a library called chess.js, which does all of the move validation for me, does all of the checkmate, draw validation for me, things like that. and the visualization is using chessboard.js. So none of those underlying libraries had to write, which is very nice, because I just wanted to focus on the decision part of it, not on the technicalities of how to play chess, if that makes sense. So that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, I mean, that's really all I have there. If anybody else wants to
Cool.
take it from there.
All right. Thanks for coming to our TED Talk.
Yeah.
We had a gentleman by the name of George come in while you were talking, and I do have it set so that new people who come in are automatically muted, but I'm pretty sure you guys can unmute yourself with like Alt A.
I mean, or you can click the unmute button, but
Yep.
I mean, if
George?
you want to use your mouse.
yeah. Hello, George.
Oh,
I think your mic may not be working there, George. Just
Yeah, you're
FYI.
unmuted, but we don't hear anything. All right. Since Chris is so excited to see my incomplete card game,
Yeah,
I'll go ahead and share next.
I'm excited to see this.
So let me close like my 5 million Firefox tabs so I don't get made fun of.
No, you should have at least 5 million Firefox tabs open.
The thing is like half of them are Facebook, because when I open something on Facebook, I don't like use the same page I found it on.
Mhm.
I open a new tab every time, and that's how I end up with like 50 Facebook tabs.
Oof.
I mean, it works because I don't lose my place where I was. So if I ever want to go back, I don't have to fiddle with like reload and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I do end up losing half my RAM to Firefox.
Yeah.
All right. Oh man, you guys remember that one Star Wars scene where they're just like, "This is getting out of hand." Now there are two of them.
that's George right now.
Yep, we got
Yeah.
two Georges. Well, I don't know which one they kick, so I'll just.
Looks like it's the blue one. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
There we go.
Nice.
All right.
I had to fix my
awesome.
audio, so I had to log off and log back in and all this other stuff. I'm on my iPad. That's why it's all.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
welcome, George. Feel
Yeah,
free to
thanks.
introduce
Welcome.
yourself.
Yeah, sure. I went to. Let's see. I got my bachelor's degree in computer science. I went to school with Anthony and Joe, and I also Chris. So I remember a couple of faces.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
just
think I
here
was there.
just to observe. I have a couple of projects, but nothing worth showing, I guess. But I
Okay.
just I don't mind seeing what other people have. That chess thing was pretty cool.
Thank you.
I got the tail end of that. I thought about making something with chess too, because it's chess. It's a pretty cool
Yeah,
idea.
it's very logical. It's something that you're able to simulate pretty easily. So yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I'll mute
Uh,
myself now, so you can take the floor.
Awesome. I was just checking the stream health, and we're still going strong. God bless dedicated streaming servers. Anyways, is this in the middle of running? No, good. Okay. I'm going to open up my project file so that I can kind of explain what I'm trying to do first, and then show what I have implemented. Because if I show what I have implemented, it's not going to be very interesting. There we go. So I gotta share screen. Share the whole screen. There we go. I already went through and made sure that like nothing work related or confidential was on screen, so we're good there. All right, am I good to go? You guys see it?
Yep.
Awesome. So I'm working on a card game. It's a gambling card game called Nim Type Zero. It's from a show called Kakaguri, and like the whole premise of it is that it's blackjack Texas Hold'em pretty much, and instead of betting actual money, they bet like antidotes for a poison that they've infected one of the players with. I don't know. This isn't as intense. I just really like the card game part of it, and I was dismayed to find that there was like no fan projects that were centered around making it playable. So, I mean, you can play this with like a real deck of cards, but I meant like a video game where you could play it. And depending on how far I get with it, I would like to implement kind of like a multiplayer aspect to it where like the game is just a server, and then all of the players connect to it with a client, and you send like your actions to the server, and it sends back the board state, or rather the table state, and it just kind of goes in rotation until the game's over. But there's 40 cards to a deck. There are 10 zeros. The suits don't really matter that much, but they're there for flavor. 10 zeros, 10 ones, 10 twos, and 10 threes. And this is a game where you kind of go in a circle, and each player has to play one card from their hand after they're dealt a 4-card hand. And the premise of it is if you place a card down on the stack and it makes the stack go over the number 9, then you're out. You busted for the round, basically. And everyone who didn't bust gets equal shares of whatever was betted, whatever was in the pot. So the round order looks a little like this. You have the dealing phase. Each player is dealt 4 cards. And the 40-card deck might change as I move forward, because you'll see that to have a 0 in your hand is really good because you're not contributing anything to the stack, meaning you have no chance of busting. But there is a quirky game state that I'll get to later that may cause me to reduce the number of zeros in a deck. Dealing phase, everyone's dealt 4 cards. Then we move into the betting phase, where, kind of like Texas Hold'em, the first player can choose to open, which is placing the first bet, or they can fold, which is they look at their hand, they go, "This is hot garbage, I stand no chance," and then they're out for the round. And then it moves on to the next player in like a clockwise order, and they look at their hand and they go, "All right, I open," which is placing the first bet. And after that first bet is played, every player in turn can then open, or I'm sorry, not open. They can fold, raise, or call. Raise is just going, if someone bet 20, you bet 20, and then however much more you want to bet. Call is you're just putting 20 down. Arbitrary, fake Monopoly money.
And I'm assuming that everyone else would have to match any raises that happen.
Yeah. That was an interesting thing that I had to go back and read, because this is so heavily based on Texas Hold'em. Like that, yeah, you have to match whatever bet is put on. So if the bet goes a little higher than you want to deal with that hand, then that would be a good time to fold. Just refuse not to mess with it at all, which kind of introduces the interesting mechanic of, if you have a crappy hand, you can intimidate people into folding by betting really high. Then you move into the actual play phase, which is where the game takes place, starting with the first player. I haven't decided if it's going to be the first person who opened or just the first person in the betting cycle, but one person has to put a card down, and then the game will check, all right, let's look at the stack. Is it above 9? No. All right, next player, place a card. If it is above 9, whoever just placed that card, they're out of the game. They lost the round. And this just kind of goes into a cycle until 9 is broken, which is the most likely state of the game, or you come to a stalemate, which I'll get to in a bit. The end round, when one person goes over 9, the round is over. You can play until a certain amount of rounds is met, or you can just play indefinitely until people run out of money and there's just one person with all the money. I think I'm going to make it both ways, like one where it's like match play. You play for 5 rounds. Whoever has the highest at the end of 5 rounds is the winner, chicken dinner. And then there's going to be like a debugging sandbox mode where you can just play forever. Because I really like this game, if you couldn't tell. Here's some of the milestones that I set out when thinking of the project. So create the core game. This is all of the code that involves like the actual game mechanics. And you can run this on one computer and just have everyone control the individual players by literally sliding the computer to them and then having them enter their response. This is the kind of make sure all of the core game mechanics are functional. And then there's going to be a networking element as I approach the multiplayer aspect of the game. So I'm going to have to like reach back into when I took 3723 at YSU and just think about like ports and forwarding and how I can send an action from a client to a server. Think of it on a conceptual level, and then take that concept and implement it in a video game engine that uses Python called Pygame. And by the time I start using Pygame, I'm also going to develop a user interface. So you're not looking at a command line. You're actually looking at a tabletop with like pictures of cards, and it feels like you're playing an actual video game.
WebSockets.
Yeah. Toothpaste through a tube. After I implement the GUI, put the GUI on top of the core. This is very large abstractions. I don't know how complicated this stuff will actually be, so I'm going to figure it out when I get there. Some notes about how the AI is going to act for single player mode, or maybe modes where not all 4 seats are occupied by real people. I kind of like Jarvis's chess machine. Well, actually, no, I think Jarvis's chess machine is a bit more sophisticated than my Phase 0 AI, which is they will look at their hand and each card will have a number associated to it. It will randomly select a number and just place that card down with no consideration for what's on the stack or what other cards are in their hand.
So that's how my chess AI used to work. That was my first iteration.
Cool.
So yeah, it does work to some extent.
Yeah, it makes the game playable, which is the point.
Yeah, and statistically speaking, sometimes random is better than not.
Yeah.
When you're in a rough situation.
How's the adage go? Blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so the AI phase one is after I get the AI actually functional. I'm going to teach it how to look at the cards in its hand, and it's going to have kind of like a finite state machine determine what kind of state their hand is. Like if there are 2 3s in that hand, which means a higher likelihood of going over 9, that is a bad hand. They're going to fold. This is just all arbitrary examples. If there are 2 2s, that's an okay hand. They're going to partake in the round. If there are 2 0s, that's a great hand. They're going to be cocky and raise the bet. And anything else, I put check here because check was a thing that the player could do. Then I found out that check doesn't actually work with this game. So just ignore this right here. That's the bottom text answer. That's where they look at their hand and go, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. And they resort to AI phase 0.
Yep.
Moving on into AI phase 2, this is where they actually look at the table state, look at the pile. Now this is in combination with phase 1. Phase 2 does not replace phase 0 and so on and so forth. Like this all stacks on top of each other. Phase 2 is going to look at the pile and kind of like blackjack in the sense where if the dealer is at 17, they can't hit. The AI will be programmed where if the pile is equal to or higher than 6, is less than or equal to 6, they will place the highest card in their hand possible so that the person next to them might break the stack. If the pile is above 6, they're going to play the lowest card in their hand. An AI phase 3, that was more brainstorming. I already mentioned that they're going to be stacked on top of each other. So I guess AI phase 3 will be accomplished once I get phase 2 and phase 1 to actually interact with one another. Like here's high level thinking. High level thinking has been accomplished. We're going to do low level thinking next. And here's that weird stalemate game state that I was talking about earlier. We actually mathed it out, and there is a game state where all the players can receive nothing but 1s and 0s, or at least all the 0s in the deck, and then all of the 1s. And if all of those cards are played the correct way, 9 is not broken, and the player's hands will be empty, which means the game will just crash. It'll destroy itself, probably. So I'm probably going to have some sort of like switch statement built in where in a draw, there's no payout, just reset the pot. Like this game is bad, start a new one, because there's a low likelihood that it could happen, but the fact that it could still happen could cause the game to just like blow up. And that's probably why I'm going to go back and change how many 0s are in a deck and how many 1s are in a deck, because they actually have significant value to the game and how it's played. So I have to figure out some balancing issues. So let's dig into the actual code. You open it and it's just like, hello world. That's all I got done.
Auto
This,
text.
Yeah, bottom text. We've got 141 lines of me flopping about like a fish as I try to misspell properties and also remember Python from when I was taught it 3 years ago. Chose Python for no particular reason outside of I wanted to mess with Pygame and I wanted to make a game. So like, here we are. And I'm doing a lot of no-nos, like having global variables, so on and so forth. But I am taking an object-oriented
They're
approach.
module variables. They're not real global variables.
Right, right. I guess that is the case. But I got like, I'm taking an object-oriented approach to developing this game, and if it can be turned into a reusable object, then I make it an object in the code. So we have three big classes, class objects. We have card, we have deck, and we have player. Whether or not I make more objects later on down the road kind of really just depends on how I feel like implementing this. However, there are some things that kind of make sense not to turn into an object. Like, for example, I don't want to make the table an object unless I have to make it appear on screen in Pygame later on. But there's really no point in me telling the game there's a table with 4 legs, because that's the rabbit hole with object-oriented programming. You just keep going deeper and deeper until you're just writing code you don't need. So we have the card class. Each card has a suit and it has the numerical value, and the numerical value is determined by how you initiate or instantiate the cards. And this is a method that just tells me what the card is with some really cool formatting shenanigans that I learned, what, 2 weeks ago, last week? I don't know. Time is an illusion. And then we have, what is that?
Nothing.
Okay. Then we have the deck object. The deck is actually going to be composed of all of the different cards. So it's an object of objects, kind of. And you can tell this because its main value is the card array. And it generates this array by going through the cards from the parameters it's given.
Should use list comprehensions.
Yes.
It's the chosen method.
I want to have
snuck
like
a couple in there.
I want to
You need to
have my
sneak one in, and line 35 to line 37. Make it a list comprehension. You'll be proud of yourself.
I could do that, but we did optimization last week, so let's put that on. Let's build actual code today and then do
There's
formatting
more-
next time.
There's always more optimization. It's not just formatting. It's a way of life.
Exactly.
Right. All right, and then we have another debugging like method that tells me what are all the cards in the deck, and this came in handy when I later made the shuffle function, which takes all of the card objects in the deck object and rearranges them. And then to prove that it was shuffling, I needed a method to like print the deck out like card by card. And then there's a method that just pops cards off the stack, which is drawing a card, obviously. And I can call this as many times as I want per player. And it was actually, I programmed it to be so much like an actual deck that you can draw until the deck runs out. And at that point, I don't know, the code explodes because you're pulling from something that's not there.
Yeah, it throws an exception on pop.
Mm-hmm. And finally, we have the most important object. We have the player object, which I've been steadily adding to, which this might just become a mess by the time I'm done with it, because the player character has all the attributes. They have money. We need to determine whether or not a player is a human or not, which is what this parameter is here. They need to be able to have a name. They need to be able to have, what is this? Oh, that's a default, right? A name. We're also going to want to, perhaps later on down the road, to differentiate between like, is this a level 2 AI or is this a level 1 AI? If this is a non-playable character, if this is a AI character, can we set separate difficulties for each player? So you're not just playing at a table with a bunch of experts, but like you have Joe Schmo to your right who's playing at a level 1, and the other 2 AIs are like level 0s just blindly throwing cards from their hand. We have the draw method, which just calls the draw 1 card method, and it adds the card to their hand. And it does this for however many times I call it. So if there are 4 cards to a hand, I just call this method and say draw 4 cards for each player. What is name? It's basically me just yelling at a player object and asking what their name is. And what is status is it returns whether or not the player is a human or not. You'll notice that like a lot of the tangible data is being stored in a string. So I'm doing a lot of string manipulation in this game. Whether or not I should be doing that or whether there is a better way to represent this data, probably, but like I like strings because they make sense to me. I'm not looking for like bare bones level efficiency here. If there's a better data variable type to represent that, I'm not going to use it. I'm going to keep it simple for now. Then we get into just functions that are not methods, unrelated to the objects. Like I have the entire game in one function currently, and then as I find things work, I'm pulling them out of there and making them their own function so that they can be called at any point during, like initiate. And this is what's run every time the game starts. Like when the game starts, it just runs this. So whatever is inside here is what happens when I press run, which I've been talking for a long time. Let's do that now. We're gonna go ahead and run. Just right from the get-go, it asks you what your name is. And then it runs all of the debugging methods and functions that I'm calling to make sure stuff works. Like it tells you what the game is, tells you the version. Here's your hand. You see I have a 2 of hearts, 1 of diamonds, 0 of diamonds, and a 1 of hearts. It's a relatively decent hand, so I guess I don't have logic implemented to check if anyone's opened yet, so that's why opening isn't an option. But let's just say I call, and that's the extent of the interaction. I still need to do like a whole lot of game mechanic interactions for the player, as I've been doing a lot of like back end stuff, making sure we have a solid foundation to springboard off of. Anyways, yeah, that's nim type 0, or at least my progress on it.
Nice.
Yes, neat.
Yep, thank you. Stop sharing now.
I think did Joe want to talk about his thing next?
Rip it, Joe.
Sure.
Go,
One,
Joe. Go.
Rip it.
I'm downloading. I bought one of those Humble bundles with like a bunch of Attack on Titan comics. And so I was like, oh, I'll do the torrent. And it's like 62 separate torrent files.
Oh, geez.
Oh,
Here goes the last one.
Nice.
And there. Okay. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but
Yeah.
We heard everything.
Oh. that wasn't the last one.
Oh, yep. Yeah, that wasn't the last one.
They're
That might not have been either.
Where are they? Oh, whatever.
Did we say 62 torrents? We meant 94.
I don't know. Okay, I paused that. Let me put that, share my screen. Allow it to share my screen. I apparently have to be right back, so give me 1 sec.
yeah, classic Mac. I was worried about that.
Yeah.
You have to like
Joe,
exit the
install.
apps to.
Yep.
No.
Security.
You see over here
The stonks
on,
guy, but security.
Yeah.
on Windows 10, we don't have that issue. We just have updates that break our Bluetooth drivers. Oh, this is a Joe Dunko guy. Why is he in the waiting room?
Who knows, man? We don't like him.
Okay, sorry about that.
Unforgivable.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so this is the website I've been working on. It's pretty simple, but I've spent a weird amount of time on it. You can see the source code on my GitHub, github.com/joedunko. It's under EA Star Wars Battlefront 2 events. I talk about the tools that I use to build it, which includes Half Moon, which is kind of like a bootstrap alternative CSS framework, Font Awesome for the icons, which actually has Star Wars icons, ESM Run, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes, and date functions. I'm also using this thing called Workbox to generate the service worker, which I'll also talk about in a little bit. So what this website does is it tells you the current event running in Star Wars Battlefront 2, which recently got a giant boost of users because it was free and it's also on Game Pass now. And so a bunch of people are playing this like 3-year-old game. So when they abandoned the game like a year or so ago, and so they only have weekly events now. They don't have any custom events. So every week there's this event on Monday, an event on Wednesday, an event on Friday, an event on weekends, as well as every year there's two yearly events on January 1st and May 4th. So it was a pain in the butt for me to find out this information. Most of it's outdated because it changed from week to week or month to month, and then it kind of stopped being updated, and then it like got updated with like a tweet, so no one updated their blog posts, and so it was a pain in the butt to figure out what's going on. So I wanted to kind of centralize this information. So my requirements were like, make it as quickly as possible. I want to know the current event at the top. I want a list of all the possible events. And then later I found out that the events are actually not local to your time. They are actually in Swedish time. So they start at midnight in Sweden, which is CET, the time zone, and conclude the following day at 6 a.m. So the events actually last for 30 hours. I only realized that later, which was a little confusing, and I had to do a bunch of date math to figure all that out. So how I built this is it's just one HTML page, for the better or for the worse. Normally I do like React and build a whole like single page app, but this time I didn't want to do that. I wanted to try something different. I have like the favicon, some SEO stuff, the Facebook Open Graph stuff, and the Twitter stuff that makes it so that the icons show up when you post it somewhere, like on Slack or on Discord or on Facebook. It shows an icon and stuff. I used Half Moon, which is a CSS framework. So I didn't design any of this. I didn't write much CSS. These cards, the title sizes, everything is like pre-built. Half Moon is pretty cool. Check it out if you're looking for an alternative to Bootstrap that's a little bit simpler. The cool thing about it is that it uses these CSS variables. So if you're familiar with CSS, you can do this like colon thing to, is it the colon thing? No, I think that's something else. Well, unrelated to this, it uses CSS variables, which is a pretty new thing. So this website really only works on like Internet Explorer, like Edge and higher. It doesn't support IE11, but that was okay for my use case. So I have all the events just as HTML. I probably could have generated that, but again, I chose not to. I have this object here that represents every event. So you can see it's an array of events. Notice I use const here. I'm not transpiling this from from ES6 to like ES3 or whatever browsers support. I'm currently just any modern browser. Most of them support const now, like 99% of them, 98% of them do. Most of them support arrow functions too. A lot of people don't realize that. So I'm just using those. So I have this object of events. I can see if the event is running by passing in a date, get the end of the event, and get the name, description, and game mode. I have some utility functions to get now. Note that it's in Stockholm, so Sweden. I have a little function to get the upcoming event. I have a cool little function to start the timer immediately. Otherwise, it'll wait a second because it updates every second. I have a little utility to create the countdown. So this part here and actually display the 0 day, 5 hour, like break it up in the hours and minutes and seconds. I mostly stole this from Stack Overflow and modified it a little bit because date math sucks. The rest of it's not very interesting. I just am using document.query selector, which a lot of people don't use. They normally use like get element by ID or get elements by class name. But query selector actually works more like a jQuery type deal where you just give it like pound sign your ID or dot your class, and it just grabs it from the DOM. And then I just replace the iter HTML with the content that I showed you above. So it's really straightforward as far as how it works. Some of the problems I had were mostly figuring out like the right date things, which I was using date functions for. Date functions is this cool library that's an alternative to Moment. I'm using it actually through this ESM run thing, which is a pretty new thing that lets you take a utility that you normally could only use if you compile your JavaScript into one and import it into the browser. So this is not transpiled. This is not nothing is done with this code. This is actually what exists in the browser, which is so cool that we have actual support for the import tag and importing specific libraries now in JavaScript. And ESM run allows you to use that just in the browser for like node libraries. And then lastly, I have this set up as a PWA. So a PWA is a progressive web app, which means that you get something cool like, where'd it go? This one, I actually have the PWA installed. So if I click this open with, so it actually opens as if it's a native app. So let's see if it'll do it. So see, it looks like a Mac app here. You can see my icon here for the app. So you could actually add this to your phone and it'll show up as if it's an app with its own icon and it'll be full screen. It won't be in a browser. I didn't particularly want to do that for any reason besides like learning myself, like how that works. I do some stuff at Bridge with PWAs, but I never like did the full thing. I'm using this utility called Workbox to generate like this code here. And what that code is it just is a list of all the images. There's a lot of images and they're all sized differently. I stole a little bit of that code from EA site because they do this cool progressive loading thing. So if your screen is a certain size, it'll only load the image that is the right size for your screen, which is a pretty new browser feature. If not, it falls back to this smaller image. But it will actually cache all those images on your phone and display the right one for you, and you can use it offline, which is pretty cool, thanks to Workbox. I think I'd like to be done with this. Like, I'd like to say this is done. I've been finding smaller bugs and fixing them. Hopefully I'm almost done with it. Oh, another thing I did is I added this simple analytics thing. I wanted to add analytics to know whether or not people are using it. So I did some research, and simple analytics kind of is a privacy focused analytics tool that lets you kind of see general information about your users, but it's not super in depth. So you can see that I can see where they came from, if there was a referral header, the types of devices and the countries that they've come from, and the number of visitors, which this is because there was a Reddit thread that I mentioned the app on.
How easy is it to set something like that up, like an analytics on a web page?
So it's just like Google. It's really simple. This is actually simpler than Google. This is the whole analytics script right there.
Oh, neat.
And notice that it's actually using my domain. I've never seen this before, but to get around blocking tools, you can just use your own domain, because most like Pi-hole and web browsers, they mostly block things like by domain.
Yep.
So simple analytics lets you just like it's just a setting. It's super easy. Like you just yeah, right here. You just change the the URL here and hook up the CNAME in your domain name.
Yeah, that's really nice, because I know that, at least from my side, a lot of proxy tools that block ads will block some of these analytics sites as well. So
Yep. And I
Yep.
was, and most of the time it doesn't matter. Like 99% of users aren't going to be blocking ads, and especially the people who you think you're going to be tracking. But I thought, like, as an exercise for myself, I thought just it was so easy to do. I did it in just a minute.
it seems like it gives you a lot of power too. Like, it shows you a lot of really good information for just like a 3-line little thing in your code.
Yep. I know there's some with more. I was looking at a comparison, but Simple is like, I think I paid 40 or $60 for a year, like not much, and for unlimited websites. So I figure if I work on any other projects, I could throw this on and I could see it. And this analytics page is actually public, which was another feature I really liked. So if you go to the website, this is the web app here, and actually I have a link to the GitHub and a link to the analytics, so anyone can see like the stats, because there's no reason for them to be private.
Oh, nice.
So I thought that was a cool little feature that I think makes sense. Yeah. This is also hosted using GitHub Pages. I decided not to use a action like Andrew when doing like the workbox stuff. So right now I just run that manually and then push it up. If I were to do this again, I think I would host it on Netify, but it's not worth making the switch at the moment. I like this just to live as it is, but I think that's whatever my next project is will probably live there.
You know, when you're done with Star Wars Battlefront 2 events.
Oh yeah, like I thought it would be 2 weeks ago, and I've spent like a weird amount of time just fixing small time countdown bugs and adding features that aren't unnecessary. It did, like, I was really surprised. So there was this thread on Reddit just today. So Wednesday is triple XP, and that's a big deal because it's an old game and everyone's trying to catch up to people who've played before. So people post on Reddit that it's Wednesday, my dudes, and there are a lot of people who are like, well, it's Wednesday. I see there's triple XP right now, but I like was also getting it yesterday, and like, when is this a weekly event? Like inside the game, it doesn't be like, hey, here's all the events and now this event is running. It just kind of happens, and you just notice like, oh, right now I'm getting triple XP, huh? So I got the opportunity to kind of answer some people's questions about like when the events start, because it's not a same time. It's like the Wednesday event starts Tuesday at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., depending on daylight savings time. And so like answering questions about that, when it ends, when it starts, why it does that, has kind of helped boost my site, as you could see.
You've become a Star Wars Battlefront 2 events expert, a world expert.
Yep.
That's what you got to do, you know.
Yeah. There's only a dozen people that understand the Star Wars Battlefront events as well as you do.
Do you think I get paid for this?
Not at all.
Wait, you guys are getting paid?
I'm not. That's why I'm asking. I'm paying. Yeah, does anyone have any questions? I just kind of babbled for a bit.
if you go back to your GitHub real quick, what's the workbox thing?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more in depth about that.
Sure. Okay. So PWAs need this file called a manifest.json, but they also need a service worker to be fully. Basically, the service worker is a little piece of software that catches the AJAX calls that your website makes and returns things that aren't like, hey, the internet's down, when the internet's down. So you need them in order to make your app work offline. So you can have a PWA with the icon and stuff that doesn't work offline without a service worker, but you can't, you need a service worker if you want to work online. So Workbox is this tool that allows you to generate a service worker, which you could use them for anything. Like you could use them to offload long-running jobs off the main thread in JavaScript to trigger events, notifications. Service workers are kind of the thing you use to do a lot of modern JavaScript, like mobile PWA features. But all I wanted was offline support. So literally you start the wizard, tell it what you want, generate this config, which doesn't really have much in it. Like it just tells you where it is and then what you want it to cache, and then where your software is, which is the main directory, of course. And then it just spits it out. That's it. It's just a node tool. So you install it with NPM and then just run it. So I run it every time I'm done. Like I make a commit and then I make another commit that just updates the service worker.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing I've run into with service workers is that they cache your stuff. So I haven't quite figured out a good way around this. And when I look up stuff, like no one else really has either. So while I was working on the website, I had to keep shift refreshing to make sure I'm getting the newest version instead of just refreshing. Because as long as that service worker is running, the browser is going to try to get the stuff from your computer instead of from the actual server. I assume it expires eventually. You can there's like a version number in the service worker, but it doesn't. That apparently is supposed to like break the cache or bust the cache rather, but it doesn't seem to work as reliably as I'd like. So maybe I'm just ignorant, or maybe like you're not supposed to be using the service worker in development. But if you're not, then how are you supposed to test it a service worker? We had problems with that at the event discovery company when we were doing that, and we just turned off the service worker. That was probably more than you expected, but
Yeah, I remember that, and that was a great decision on our part.
Yep. Our website was so small bandwidth wise, and no one was using it as a PWA, where it just didn't make any sense. Maybe if we weren't making as big of changes as quickly or fixing bugs like, every other day, it would have made sense for users to cache a version of the app. But as it was now, or as it was, and like for a long time, it just makes no sense. And I would say like it probably makes no sense for most projects unless there's something that takes up a lot of bandwidth or they have other concerns. Yeah, service workers are weird. I don't quite have my brain wrapped around them yet, but this was a good opportunity to try.
Okay.
I
do
forgot
have
to
to-
unmute myself earlier. Like there were so many times when I made comments and like they went unheard. And I'm like, okay, talk over me then, go off. And then I realized it was actually me all along.
Is there anything you wanted to ask?
Oh no, like earlier when you said any questions, I was in the middle of saying, no, I don't have any questions, but this looks pretty cool. And then someone just like steamed over me while I was talking.
I gotta hop off here, but This is great.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me discuss this. And
Oh,
I'll have
thank you
fun.
for joining.
Yeah. Thanks
I
for
think I'm
joining.
at the same place.
Okay.
All right, you have a good one.
Tip.
See ya.
Yep.
I was listening to you, Joe, but also, um, I've been working on the betting function, and it's it's a mess. It's a hot mess, let me tell you. Um, I'm like trying to recall how to, because this is a function that's going to be called every time a player is being asked to bet. And so like I'm trying to make sure all the variables stay specific to each player, because I
You
don't
should-
want
You should share
George.
your screen.
Yeah, sure. If you want to see this abomination. All right, share screen. There we go. So like I'm trying to make it so that when a player places a bet, it doesn't like take money from everyone.
Mhm.
So that's fun.
Do you all right? Where are you storing your money?
Oh, that's easy. That's the pot. Oh yeah, that's a global.
Yeah, but like where are you storing like how much money the individuals have?
Each player starts with 50.
Okay.
Yeah, it's,
Cool.
yeah. And the status is just like whatever they chose to do.
Mhm.
And like if a player folds, their status gets changed to fold, so the game knows later to skip them when doing turn order.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not like having any problems yet, probably because I wrote a bunch of stuff that I haven't run yet. But
I see that. You'll probably want a colon after that else on 95.
oh yes, I would. There we go. See, we're working together. All right. So if the betting amount is less than pot, then error message.
But yeah, should I let me see. I've got food that's somewhere between there and delivered.
I mean, if
Yeah,
you
if you
want to
want to
like,
go next.
Sure. Well, yeah, if you want to go next, my food should be delivered in time.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can go next. That's fine. Let me get my stuff set up here real quick. Share screen. Screen 2. Sweet. Let me know if you could see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so the little code that I wrote, I guess it's pretty basic here. I will open it up real quick. So the issue that I had that I wanted to do some code for was it wasn't like making a game or anything in my case, but there's a major vulnerability that came out recently, yesterday actually, with the sudo command in Linux, which the sudo command allows you to elevate privileges for any command you're doing. So if something doesn't have permissions, you just sudo in front of it, and then it'll give it permissions of root or whatever to run whatever files you want. The vulnerability was actually, just to go a little bit into it, was a what's called a buffer overflow vulnerability. So I guess the best way to kind of describe what that is and what I'm trying to work against, I can do a little bust out the paint here, Microsoft Paint. And if you imagine your memory buffer to be about this on your computer, so your memory where all the live running data is stored or where your computer is running, to be this big box, you have it's broken up into chunks for each thing. So say you have a chunk here, and that chunk is for, we'll say, terminal or whatever. And then you have a secondary chunk that's broken up here, and we'll say this is for some services running or whatever on the PC. So with this vulnerability, we'll say the service is sudo just for simplicity's sake. With this vulnerability, what it's actually doing is it is oh, that didn't work. Fill solid color. Okay. So what this vulnerability is doing is you're executing a command in the terminal window, but you're breaking outside of terminal's buffer window. So like outside of its allocated memory range, and you break out into another area's memory range to overwrite data in there. So if you're able to do that, you could do some pretty bad things. And in this case, you can actually add people to that list of people that can elevate. So by running a simple command, I could just break out of this terminal session, and I can run in this sudo area, and I can actually just say, okay, I want this user to be a sudo user. So just to kind of demonstrate that real quick, just to show you what the vulnerability looks like. I'm not used to new Ubuntu here, but so if I just run sudo -v first to show you the sudo versions, this version is actually the version that it was tested on as broken. And let me see here.
Just out of curiosity, are you doing this in a virtual box?
Yep.
Okay.
Is it freaking out? It was freaking out on Discord the other day. I don't know if the video stream is okay now, but
no, it's crystal clear.
Okay, that's good. So just to show what the vulnerability looks like. So with this command, this sudo edit command, this is a shell running basically it's a very easy exploit to do, which is another big problem. But this string here is what actually will show you the exploit. So normally when you run this, I'll run it without shell. So it should spit out a bunch of A's here is what the program should do. But if you do it through the shell line, it will, let me retype it in. Oh, and now it's going to do that. Oh, it must have updated in the background on me. So I literally just ran this before this and it was working. Well, failing. But what it gives you is it normally gives you this error, which, let's see, clear. It gives you an error that looks like this. malloc corrupted top size bash syntax error near unexpected token aborted core dump. So if you see this error in your system version, then that means you have the vulnerability and they can basically add anyone to the sudo file they want. So what I did was I wanted to write up a very quick bash script that is very, very basic and can be run on any version of Linux. And this was important because, or any, I guess, no matter what version it's running, it'll be able to function properly. And so I wanted to use as minimal things as possible. So I'm using basically just bash here with grep and Perl regex modifiers. So, or regex modifiers, I guess. Got to please Palmer. But very, very simple. All I'm doing is grabbing the current version. So if I grab this line here and just paste it into terminal window to show what this does. So sudo -v will give you the full sudo version. So if I take this and I pipe this into grep, which grep allows me to kind of weed some stuff out of the response here, I can actually just search down for just this variable number, just this version number. So with this string, if I paste this in here, it just gives me the version number out, which is what I want. And it stores that into a variable. And then I hard set the number above it because the new release will be starting a version above it. And yeah, so, and that's what I compare it to make sure that this is lower. And if it's lower, then I say, hey, the version of sudo is vulnerable. If it's not lower, then it'll say greater than or equal to required version. And if it's not Ubuntu, because that's the other thing, versions are based on the version of OS you're using. So I also do another grep statement here to grep for what version of the OS you're running. And if it can't grep this, which is a standard thing for Ubuntu, then it knows you're not running Ubuntu, and it'll spit out this script is only built for Ubuntu-based systems. So in the future, I want to add this so that it will recognize what OS you're running and compare it to whatever version's vulnerable. I had to throw this together though last night for something for work for spitting this out and making sure that we are updating properly today. So, but yeah, this is a major vulnerability that just came out. So if I were to run this, let's see, real quick. So it says current version is vulnerable. Let me pull up my. Let me try this one more time. This part here. Yeah, it must be. I don't know why it's not displaying properly, but 1.8.31 is a vulnerable version. So according to Qualys, who's the people who found this vulnerability. And so I just added this to Git repo that I made, and then I threw it up on my GitHub. Pull that up. So here, so I got this here, and it's just right here. And this only, like I said, only checks for Ubuntu, and I'll probably end up updating it for all other versions down the line and clean it up a bit more. But yeah, that's my script.
Nice.
I guess. Any questions or?
No,
go ahead, Chris.
I was mostly interested in how to take advantage of that vulnerability.
Oh,
yeah. Like I was curious, one, if your script did that, and like that's what I was thinking, was it does what the vulnerability is. But yeah, checking versions also makes sense.
Yeah, I can. So I could do that. The problem was, and I was actually planning on doing that in the future. The only thing is the actual vulnerability script or thing to run the vulnerability is different for each version of each different OS. And not only that, then you have to also catch errors and show, like, if you catch the error, then show it's vulnerable, whatever. But it was way too much to do in one night getting ready for today. That's actually what I wanted to do though, was use the actual sudo edit command as part of the script to test for, and then do like a catch, which seems to be not that easy in Bash. So like a catch block to catch that error. But yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. I just wanted to provide a little bit of commentary. It sounds adding yourself to the sudo list is this is an over. God, what's the terminology I'm looking for?
It's very bad.
Buffer overload, I think.
Buffer overflow, yeah. That's what
overflow, yeah. It kind of reminds me of, well, someone recently found that there's a hidden room in Pokemon Emerald that you couldn't access in the games because the devs just blocked it with a bunch of trees. And you're thinking to yourself, well, why would they use trees inside of a building to block something? Something's fishy here. So like they loaded up the core of the game into some sort of like editor that allowed them to override the values of the tile map. And then they would go into they went into the room, and it was just a straight up debugging tool that they were hiding in there because there was like some accessory that was supposed to come out for the game in Japan and then was just dead in water, didn't come out. So instead of removing the room, they're just like, we're going to prevent people from going into it. Well, what happens when you go into it is it assumes you have this accessory plugged in, and it starts to run like all the extra software and whatnot, and then it goes to reach for the memory where the script is, and instead of finding values there, they just find a bunch of null values, which overloads the cartridge, overloads the game or whatever, and just bricks the whole cartridge. So if you were to do this on a real game, you would have to pull the ROM off of it and put a new one on.
Oh
But
wow.
everyone who was doing this was doing it in an emulator. So like every time they reload it, the memory's fresh.
Hmm. Yeah, games are actually a really good way to visualize a buffer overflow. Again, there's a uh, just where we're just watching it and talking about it. There's a speed run actually done of a video game called or Pokemon Blue, so one of the original Pokemon, and that
Okay.
game is so broken. First off, but in that game, with only using basic inputs, start, select, A, B, up, down, left, right, you can actually buffer overflow the game to access in the PC storage where you store your Pokemon or your items or whatever. You can actually go into there and scroll down beyond Pokemon and items, and you see like other registry and game files. So you could like buffer overflow the game to like give yourself Pokemon or like give yourself list of items or certain RNG factors, like random number generated factors for like catching Pokemon in certain areas, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, there's buffer overflows are a very, very big problem, especially when they give you uh, PrivX or privilege escalation to this degree, especially because this one is extremely bad. Going from any local user, you can go up to a root user, a pseudo user. So
Yeah, this sounds absolutely terrible, and
yeah,
I'll play the angel's advocate since Palmer was greatly interested in how to use this, how to take advantage of it. How do you like protect against it? I know you can update the version, and the version has a fix, but what is the fix to something like this?
so the fix to something like this is just blocking the method that allows them to do the overflow as like a kind of a concept. So say, for instance, say your code doesn't um, properly sanitize backticks, which is actually a pretty common thing because people don't know, hey, there's 3 different types of quotes you can do. There's double quote, single quote, and backtick. And
Mhm.
some people just don't allocate for that. And when you don't, you can potentially break out of a buffer or break out of your localized area. And how you fix that is you add in backticks uh, to your sanitization algorithm or your sanitization part of your program. So
Okay.
yeah, you basically just fix your sanitization is how you fix this. But this one specifically has actually been around for 10 years. So the vulnerability was introduced in 2011 um, and has been around for all this time. So that's why it's such a big deal. Full blown privilege escalation to root that's been around for 11 years. So, and it's possible on every version of Linux because it's built into sudo, which is pretty much on every version of Linux. So,
Wild.
yep. Yep.
I'm going to need a
Also,
minute, but yeah, just imagine how many of those kind of vulnerabilities there are on Windows.
oh, I know they are.
Yeah, that's the
Like,
other that's another really good thing to mention though, because a lot of people say or a lot of people don't understand like when these things come out and then like how they properly get released and released to the public and stuff like that. And it's one thing if a vulnerability were to come out for an OS like Linux or Mac, where it's a very proprietary code base. So that's a proprietary code base. The only people who are really able to dig into that source code are employees of Microsoft or Apple. So those are the people that are digging into the code. And if there's a vulnerability found, they're the ones who usually have to find it or find root cause, which can cause a delay because it's a set number of people, not everyone that can look at it. Whereas a system like Ubuntu, it being open source, anyone can look at the code, which means anyone can find these types of things. Granted, this vulnerability was kind of a bit of an exception because it was around for a long period of time, which isn't usually the case with open source code and vulnerabilities. But um, with one going under the hood for this long in an open source tool, you can only imagine if this was in a closed source tool, how long this vulnerability could have been around for. So,
without a doubt,
yeah.
I uh, I think vulnerabilities in operating system, especially in terms of Windows, kind of like cockroaches. If you find one, you know there's more.
Yeah.
There will always be more.
Oh,
And the fact that Windows tries so hard to hide theirs is not a good thing for Windows users.
Yeah. Yeah, they've definitely done a lot lately with becoming more open, specifically opening up uh, what is it? Their command prompt. So open sourcing their basically command prompt engine on
Mhm.
GitHub, which is actually pretty cool. But uh, they've done a lot lately since Ballmer was taken out of power there at Microsoft. But yeah,
Sounds like it's for the better then.
definitely. Yeah, I feel like it.
All right, I'm back and I have my food.
Welcome back.
Nice.
I still haven't ordered Grubhub.
Oh man,
Oops.
yeah, I'd get on that. Yeah, I'll pull up my stuff and talk about that in a bit.
Okay.
I mean, unless you were in the middle of something.
Oh no, I was just talking about that. If you wanted a little time to eat, I could talk more though. I
Oh.
can stall. Trust me.
Oh, you can stall. All right. Yeah, give me a second. I'm gonna need like 2 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. I could just pull up another thing that I'll be working on here real quick. Slipstream.
Yeah,
I'll
by
reshare.
all means, just like go off, because
Yeah.
the more content we have here, the cooler the end result's going to be.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
live stream that this video eventually becomes, or the video that this live stream eventually becomes. Bleh.
Okay, so actually, let me pull up. I had a really good. I think that it was Armis that did it. Armis. No. Let me pull up my history. Here we go. Getting the link. There we go. So this was actually another big vulnerability that came out today that I'll be working on creating some sort of script for, probably either tonight or later this week. So this slipstreaming, this is a very good little GIF of what happens. But basically what it does is it utilizes a legacy-ish protocol for telephony. So there's this there's a protocol called, what was the name of it? Something 3.0. That what it does is it utilizes that protocol to navigate through the other ports on your PC. And it specifically comes in on port, I believe 1720 was the port number. And it allows an attacker from the internet, if you were to click on a bad website, it would allow them to browse your internal network and all the devices on your internal network, even through a firewall or something. So it's obviously a very, very bad vulnerability. It was patched in latest versions of Chrome, Firefox, and Safari, and Edge as well. So it's not, as long as you're on a newer version, you're fine. But what I plan on doing is writing a script that will search for that port and creating rules in our seam. So we have a seam, which basically what that is it stores all the logs from all our servers and all our networking devices in one place, and does a little bit of analysis of those logs and stuff. And I can create rules in there to search for that traffic or to alarm us on that traffic. So if I see internet traffic coming in on port 1720, I can immediately cut that off, or I can fire off alarms that will alert us of the website or the users trying to go to the website, so we know to lock down those PCs. There is, I believe, a small demo on here too to show kind of what this does. The guy, can I mute this? Oh, I guess not. Oh, I can go to the YouTube video. I'm just going to do that. Mute that. I'll mute this. I'll skip through it. So, no. There we go. So basically, what he's doing here is on his phone, he's going to a website that he's crafted, and then he's running a script over here. And he doesn't have the script fully out. He has just a pre-version of the script. You can see he's connecting to printers on the internal network from a device that's actually from a device that's external. So this device over here is external. This one's on the internal network. This person browsed to a website that he's getting to from the outside. And now he's printing stuff on the printer from outside, which is a printer on the inside network. So pretty cool piece of code that I really want to get my hands on. But I'll also be writing code to try to mitigate this here too, which probably be doing, like I said, this either tonight or maybe over the weekend here. So, yep.
It almost feels like you're just playing a game of tennis with yourself.
It really is. That's what security is. Yeah, it's who can get more creative.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
All right.
you ready now, Palmer?
Yeah, I'm ready. I think I have to exit full screen to have control of my computer again.
Stop sharing. There we go.
Okay. Share screen. Oh man. What is screen 1, 2, and 3? It's definitely not the same screens I have set up on my computer.
At that point, just start sharing by application.
Yeah. All right. Do you see Visual Studio Code?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then I think this is the right one. All right, cool. So I'm just going to talk about the Cordo engine first, just because I think this is a really interesting, fun project. Let me see. Oh, okay, there it is. So the big thing I was working on recently was optimizing this because my initial pass at this would have taken, I think it was like 300 years or something like that to run all the way, and I got it down to 11 from optimizing some stuff. But it's pretty here's like the big function that does most of the work, and it is using these global variables because I'm basically using that information to figure out an approximate idea of how long it should take. So it's like so it's basically building a tree where it goes through, and here's where it would start. It has an empty board, and it has a list of all of the pieces. So it will currently go through, and it has this recursive tree generator thing where it passes the remaining pieces, the board state, and then these other optional things for how many layers to go down depth. Oh, okay. Depth being the starting depth, and then how many layers to go down. So I was also trying out some things where it would randomly choose the first couple of moves, and then I would have to tell it how far it's already gone, and then how far till it stopped. But basically, this is pretty actually simple. What it's doing is um, taking the board, making a copy of it, and then iterating through all of the possible like pieces. So it's like, all right, I picked a spot on the board, and now I'm going to pick a piece to place there, and then it tries that for all the pieces going into that spot. And it's basically just going to do this whole branching thing where for each piece that could be placed in each place that a piece could be placed in, it goes down all of the different possible ways there, and then will ultimately return, here's how many wins for player A there are and how many wins for player B there are going down this route. So because it's a much more closed game than chess, like there's only ever going to be 16 moves. The amount of choices gets narrower as the moves progress. So like with chess, you could have things where there's moves that are repeated, or like you can move a piece and then move it back and all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes that actually makes a tactical like difference. But with this, it's very like there's 20 trillion possible games for this, and that's it, which is a lot, but it's not nearly as many games as there are for chess.
There never will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and Go's got even more. But let me see. So here, this is broken right now because of something I made a change to. But this is the profiler I was using. So it's this Python C profile, and you basically just run something. I don't have it set up the same way I was profiling before, and I've made a change recently that broke something. Let me see. I bet. Yeah, I could actually. No. There we go. All right. So now I bet if I run it. Yep. All right. So it's going to run for some amount of time. I don't remember. Okay. I had it set at a reasonable amount. So so there it did what is that? 2,651,000 function calls. Okay, no. So it's not it didn't. Oh man, how do I get my screen sharing thing to not have this green bar around
Oh,
it?
you can drag it to move it, or there should be a pin on it.
No, there's like a green bar around my screen. I bet I can
yeah.
just
You
I
could
could just
drag.
do
You can.
this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can just do that. Yeah, the green bar that's showing was covering this up. But
Oh yeah.
basically, all right, so it visited 57,000 nodes. So not nearly as many as how many function calls there were. But so it does 57,000 nodes being visited. So that is like possible moves and branches of possible moves and everything. And here I have it showing based on the cumulative time, which of the functions it was calling took the most amount of time. So you can see here we've got this remove list object method that is taking up a bunch of time. So if I search in here, remove. Okay, so it's probably that one. Actually, that's the only one. So I mean, there's other more efficient ways that you could remove a piece from a list in Python. So if I want to optimize that, I'll probably end up replacing that at some point. But yeah, and the nice thing is when it's not a built-in method that's taking a bunch of time, you can then see like, all right, recursive tree is taking a bunch of time. That makes sense because that's like the only thing that's running there. If I go to place 57, so line 57, it's telling me that this function right here is taking a bunch of time. And then I can go through and see like, all right, it's doing a bunch of like moving stuff around, or what is it doing that's taking a bunch of time, and try to optimize that. um yeah, that's currently the big things with this is going to be optimizing and figuring out ways that I can eliminate branches. So if the next step before doing any of those smaller optimizations is going to be to treat any board state that can be mirrored or reflected into any other board state, treating them the same. So, like, if you place a piece in the bottom left hand corner, that would be the same as placing that piece in the top left corner, the top right corner, the bottom right corner, any corner. Like, especially on the first move, like you can mirror that across uh, four different moves. So basically treating anything where the structure would be the same if you rotated or mirrored it. Um, yeah, that's going to be, I think that will take out a big chunk of solving these, hopefully. Or I'll have to like throw it on AWS instance and let it run for a couple months.
Yeah. So this is like all about optimization now, right? You're just trying to lower the time it takes to do the output, right?
Yeah. So lowering the time it takes to do, or eliminating things that it has to compute, I think is going to be the big step now. Depending on, or who knows where that'll get me. If it still doesn't make it reasonable, then I'll have to figure out like some heuristic instead of like just solving the game. Because solving like so the cool thing with this is that the game is somewhat solved, where since there's a finite number of moves and all that stuff, you can make that decision tree, and like say it takes a month or two to calculate it all. You only have to do that once, and then every time you want to analyze a board position, you just follow the decision tree down to whatever the current board state is, and then it's like, oh, this move here gives this many wins for A, and this move, like you can find which move gives the most number of wins for each player, and like how many draws, wins, and loses there are with each decision. But yeah, so that's where that's at. I think I have Unity still open somewhere.
Unity.
Yep. Yeah, so here's the thing I started building a couple days ago in Unity. So what I wanted to make, since I've done video stuff, is a tool to be able to set up a scene that like would be somewhat accurate to how it would look in camera. So what I'm going to want to do ultimately is have a bunch of options of what something to imitate like all the lenses that I have, or like, all right, I know that the lens has this focal length, this f-stop, and this I don't know what other attributes there would be. Oh yeah, and that it's for a camera that has a sensor that's this size. I can know that if I place the camera this far away from the subject, have the f-stop set to this, and the like exposure set a certain way, and set up lights in the scene that are similar to what I want to do, then I can save a bunch of time the day of shooting, because it's like, all right, I already have an approximate idea of like how to set up the lights and all that stuff. Obviously, you're going to have to fine tune everything in person, because a Unity engine isn't going to be perfect. And even if it was, it's not going to be exactly replicating the situation in real life. There's some specific, like some shots from the short I shot with AMP that I really wish I could have tested things out in some virtual environment without having to do it, because we were on a time crunch. I would have loved to have tested a bunch of that stuff out beforehand and got things looking a way that I would like more. But yeah, so the big thing I got done last night was this slider that interacts with this depth of field option. So basically, I'm going to make all the things about the camera, like focal length, focus distance, f-stop, all of that stuff. Different sliders that you can manipulate and then look around and set shots up and stuff. And I'd like to do it in VR too. That'll be another fun learning experience here. Is to
Oh
try
yeah,
out.
VR would be a sick thing to do.
Yeah, because like I
really
think
gauge it.
exactly, because like I think it would be nice to be able to virtually, physically move around in that space and set up cameras and lights and all that stuff. And I think it would give a better idea of what the actual limitations of the space would be. Like, oh yeah, it'd be great to have a light there, but I can't do that. Yeah. So that's that current project. And I think, yep. And here's the other project I mentioned earlier, the chess memory game. Basically, I'm really bad at it, and you hit reset board, shows a board state. I've only got 10 seconds to memorize this. I definitely won't. I think there's a couple things I want to add to this, like helper things, where it'll show you like, all right, submit that. Yep, try again. Right now, it's kind of not very helpful. It just says, you didn't get it, try again. But I think adding some helper features of like, all right, you got these spots correct. Here's the spots you're missing. What goes there, kind of thing. But yeah, those are the 3 projects that I've kind of got going on.
For the let's call it the camera simulator for sake of brevity.
Camera simulator.
What? How do you determine that the character model has a texture similar to skin texture like you would have on a person.
Oh,
What parameters are set for that?
I have no idea. I haven't done anything for that. But I mean, it seems like I'm very inexperienced with Unity, and I know that it has this whole idea of materials and like that can affect how reflective things are and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm not super familiar with Unity. I'm mostly just relying on hoping that their lighting engine and all of that stuff is good enough. And because let me see, actually, I've got a bunch of post processing stuff on here. My favorite thing I discovered was that you can do color grading in here, and all I did here was change the color temperature, because this is a thing that I like to do with lighting stuff. Is you light everything like you light your subject with like 3200K light and white balance to that, and then you can have something that's like 5600K daylight temperature, and when you're color balanced to that 3200 or incandescent bulb temperature, everything that's daylight temperature looks really, really blue. And like, see, you get a natural looking skin tone here while also having that cool blue outline. Which the thing that's definitely wrong here is I've taken the actual light source out of that light and moved it up. So that is not an actual light source behind him.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that because it was shining off of his scalp. I'm like, are there multiple light sources?
Yeah,
Or
no, there aren't. That light source has just been moved. Like you can see, there's no actual light source here. There's a light source here. That's where it actually is.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think like a really cool improvement that I'd enjoy seeing on this is well, that model there was
I-
probably made in Blender, so I don't know how much of this you can do in Unity.
He's
Yeah, I don't
T-posing real hard.
He is T-posing. It's
Yeah.
like it's a soft T-pose.
If you could import the model into Unity, you can actually like give him you can change the way light would hit, which they've done a little bit of already. Change the way the light hits the shirt, the tie, and the skin.
Yeah.
Like his skin is gleaming a lot more because they've set the texture to be akin
Yeah.
to skin. And I'm kind of like wondering, well, what are the parameters for skin?
Yeah. Or like,
Yeah.
what if you were planning on doing a video shoot of someone who's wearing like a glossy jacket as opposed to like a matte jacket?
You tell them not to wear a glossy jacket.
You redefine the problem.
Yeah. No, you just spray them down with that stuff that makes things less reflective.
Give them a good old cold coat of matte varnish.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Like I've watched some videos of people doing video shoot stuff, and they're like, yeah, reflective surfaces, you just spray them down with that.
Who says that being a model isn't pain?
Yeah.
Another
Chat-
really cool.
Okay, that's just George. Okay.
Yeah, he said he had to leave a little bit earlier. I think it was like in the middle of Wes's talk.
Gotcha.
I find this fascinating, not just because of my familiarity with Unity, but I like anyone taking any tool that isn't like the average use case and fitting it to something completely and wildly different.
Yeah.
Like Unity game engine, never would have thought that I'd use that for a simulation environment for I'm about to do a shoot. What might it look like? And I think that's just really cool.
Yeah, so I actually I had heard a bunch about these pre-visualization tools, and Dan actually mentioned this one that's I think like $80 on Steam. It's called Cinetracer.
Mhm.
Which it's $90. And I mean, it's definitely way better than anything I would end up making. But I was like, I don't really care for all the features that it has for the most part. I'm like, I want to make it basically just something that will allow me to put light sources in a place and then move cameras around, and also have this accurate idea of all of the not all of the physics, but like, you know, some of the physical attributes of the camera. Like I want the field of view to be approximately correct, like given that I know what the focal length is and what the sensor size of my camera is and all that stuff. Like I want to be able to, obviously I could just spend the $90 and that would probably be way cheaper if I account for the amount of time this is going to take. But I don't know. I think it was a good excuse for me to actually try out Unity. That's the main.
Yeah.
Good learning experience, so you never know where this could take you. somewhere
Yeah,
else.
exactly. Like I will probably end up actually buying Cinetracer, but I don't know. I've been tangentially I've messed around with Unity like in the distance a handful of times, and it seems really cool. But it seems like there's a learning curve of the menus and all of that stuff that I'm currently being frustrated with.
The
yeah.
user interface is not intuitive, like at all, and
Yeah,
Unity even acknowledges that by creating different user interfaces that just hide a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like it's really good once you know where things are. But yeah, it's definitely very bizarre.
Personally, I feel like once you have a good hand on the inspector, everything else is just like the limits of your coding ability. If you
Yeah.
can program it and slap that script on any object, then you can make anything you want. And seeing a camera simulator, that's neat. Like your other projects
Oh.
are cool, don't get me wrong, but that one
Mhm.
stuck out to me.
Yeah, I mean, the reason is because you can see something.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's yep. I'm not even gonna start that conversation. Just because I think that there's very interesting problems that don't have a very highly visual aspect to them, but I think that visual solutions to things are get people's attention more. Because like I've done hardly anything with that Unity project. Like I basically set up a scene using one of the templates and then messed around for a long time. Like the only thing I've really done there is take that depth of field slider and tie it to a UI element,
Mhm.
which I mean is an important first step, and like that's going to be an important part of like the camera simulator thing. But it's just like I did almost no work there, and most of it was me dealing with figuring out how menus work, and it is the one that looks impressive. I know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just salty.
Yeah, you have a right to be salty, but there is something to be said about the ability to sell a problem in order to get funding.
Yeah.
That's why when people want to they're applying for grants and stuff, they want to solve a problem. They go for like the flashiest tool that they
Yep.
can use to solve that problem because it's easier to market as a problem. Whereas if you walk into a room with a bunch of board officials and go, watch how fast I can run this script, brrr,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
just like, what am I looking at right now?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean that's fine. Like you definitely need to have an easy way of conveying that information.
Mhm.
Like if you're giving a demo of something and the best you can say is see how fast I can run this script without anything that conveys what the problem is. Yeah.
Built for speed.
Built for speed. Where am I getting notifications from? But yeah, no, I mean it's cool. I've got nothing else to talk about.
Oh, that's fine. I'm running on fumes myself, and we have actually made it to the 2 hour mark. So
Woo!
Yeah.
if you guys are cool to wrap up here, this is the first Makerspace Night online.
Yeah.
That sounds perfect to me.
And then you need to send out the Facebook live stream thing that we did here, and get people to listen to it like a podcast. Or
Yeah, I
dude,
feel
we
like
should
it'd be
start a
good pod-
podcast.
We should. That's what I was literally thinking when we first started this. I was like, holy crap, this would be a crazy podcast idea.
I think the interval needs to be stretched just a little bit because Makerspace Night is like, every week, and every week you get to see progress.
No,
For
2 hours
project-
every week.
For projects like this, I feel like there'd be more to present if we did it every other week.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
way
definitely.
That way it's not like, it's Wednesday already and I haven't done anything,
Yeah. But I do think that the fact that this is being recorded and like is then going to be shareable after the fact, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a podcast. There are enough
Yeah, yeah.
podcasts.
Hey guys, check out my podcast on hive.com or whatever that radio website is.
All right, cool.
All right, this is it. I'm out of here.
See
You,
ya.
you
Thanks.
guys are out of here because I'm kicking you.
Okay.
All right, bye bye.